So the question is today, can you beat Fuwalos with Yubel? And the short answer is no. The long answer is no, you can't. Right when Fuwa was announced, of course it caused an immediate uproar in the Yu-Gi-Oh community. I mean, Maxi is back, and I don't have to talk a lot about that. A lot of you guys probably witnessed that. And it was around the time where Yubel was one of the better decks and then slowly transitioned, thanks to Fiendsmith, into one of the best decks in the format. So obviously, naturally, I sat down, talked to a few people, and theorized what we can do as Yubel players to battle Fuwalos, and oh boy, it's not looking that great. I mean, let's just think about that for a moment. If the opponent has Fuwalos, we start with Lotus, it's very bad into Fuwalos. We start with Throne, it's basically the same, or even as an extender, destroy Spirit effect, summon OG Yubel, even that plays into Fuwalos. If we start with the Back Enemies engine, it plays into Fuwalos. Engraver isn't necessarily good into Fuwalos, so it isn't looking good for Yubel. And that perfectly transitions into today's topic. Why has Yubel fallen off? Why is almost no one playing that anymore? And is it really Fuwalos' fault? The question isn't as simple as a lot of you guys probably think. I mean, yeah, Fuwalos has a big play into the downfall of Yubel, but not for the reason you think. During the time the OCG had Yubel, it was also a very good performing deck, even though they had during the time Maxi legal at 3, and Maxi is like a death sentence execution for Yubel. So how come that seemingly with the release of only Fuwalos for us, Yubel vanished off the meta? Because it wasn't Fuwalos' fault alone. There was one tiny thing playing into that. The ban list. The limitation of Phantom of Yubel. If you have played Yubel, which I exclusively did since its release basically, up to the limitation of Phantom of Yubel, you realize how extremely unfairly powerful Phantom of Yubel at more than 1 copies is. In my opinion, it deserves to be at 1. It completely deserves that. I'm not defending Phantom of Yubel, even though I wish for it to come back, just because I'm biased and I want to Phantom of Yubel multiple times during a turn. But in my opinion, it's completely deserving at 1, unfortunately. But the limitation of Phantom of Yubel took away stuff from Yubel that made it stand out in comparison to Snake Eyes, for example. I mean, Snake Eyes is basically, or was basically, the same thing as Yubel, just better. I mean, Yubel had arguably the better endboard, but Snake Eyes didn't need to play as many bricks as we did, especially during the time we also played Chaos Summoning Beast and Terror Incarnate, which we do not, or I do not currently. Snake Eyes basically did the same thing, but better and cleaner. The thing that made Yubel maybe even, if you talk to certain people, better than Snake Eyes was that you can just spam the hell out of Phantom of Yubel, which made the deck impossible to stop, in the grind game almost impossible to beat, and you can just extender, or you can Phantom of Yubel, and you have OG Yubel and Spirit on board, and then you just run into for game. Those things made Yubel extremely broken, and Phantom of Yubel is such a strong legacy support card that even at 1, it's a thing that lets it stand out. It's just that broken. So yes, while I do believe that the release of Fuwalos really crippled Yubel as a deck and weakened it, of course, I do genuinely believe that more of a reason is the limitation of Phantom of Yubel. But let's ask a very important question right now. Is it even that bad that Yubel isn't meta anymore? I mean, if you are a Yubel hater, which I can understand, it's a combo slop deck basically. I just like Yubel, I love Yubel. I can play this deck like I can ride my bike, I will never forget that. It's just my pet deck. So if you hate Yubel, you are probably really happy that it isn't meta anymore. And I am kinda too. You see, I have been playing Yubel since basically day 1, and I'm talking about day one, back when the first wave came out. And the first wave wasn't Grave Squirmer or Nightmare Throne, no. It was literally Samsara the Lotus, the future king of the pirates, Spirit of Yubel, and a card we sadly aren't even playing, which is Loving Defender. I love that card from the bottom of my heart. And so what I want to say with that is that I know how it is to play Yubel as a rogue deck. Even when Nightmare Throne and Grave Squirmer came out, Yubel was just a rogue deck, and I really enjoyed that time. I really enjoyed the times when no one had Yubel on their radar and it was genuinely a question of the opponent what those cards do. I really loved those formats. So now is Fiendsmith included into Yubel, and sadly, it's if you put Fiendsmith out of the deck, I believe it's a lot weaker. So as long as we can play Fiendsmith, I believe we should play Fiendsmith. I'm not saying with that a pure version without Fiendsmith is a lot worse. No, I really do believe that a pure Yubel deck is very underrated, and I'm kinda happy if Fiendsmith gets like a death sentence on the ban list to experiment again with a pure version. Maybe I will experiment on that even without Fiendsmith getting killed off on the ban list. Let's just see. Alright, to get back to the main point of the video. Even with Engraver and Fiendsmith as an engine in Yubel, it is still a rogue deck, which I believe isn't really that bad, since if it's rogue, it's kinda more fun to play against people. And on top of that, if we are playing, or if you are playing the TCG and you want to play Yubel, you are kinda eating good. I mean, in Master Duel and OCG, they first of all have Yubel, and second of all, the deck is very, very harshly hit in those formats. I mean, the only thing Master Duel has over the TCG is that they have Phantom of Yubel at 2, which is a big deal, but you have to see the bigger picture. They have Beckoning Beast at 2, they have Spirit Gates at 2, Feedspell at 2, and they have Max C. It's a very, very harsh environment for Yubel to be in. So in my opinion, in the TCG, it's in its strongest form currently. One additional point I see in why Yubel has fallen off isn't really necessarily that it's a weak deck now, no. It is that there are just better options for meta players, for the general public, during the times where Fuwa came out and Phantom got hit on the ban list. I mean, it was literally Ryziel Malice format. I mean, come on, bro. Of course, a lot of people that don't really like Yubel but just played it because it was strong will jump off of that ship. So, it isn't bad that Yubel is a rogue deck. It doesn't mean that it's a bad or weak deck. You can still win, you can still top events, even in the Justice Hunter format, even with K9. I will maybe make a video about that specifically to talk more about that. So yeah, in my opinion, it is completely fine where Yubel is sitting at currently. So what can we actually do against Fuwalos? In my opinion, unfortunately not a lot. If we get hit with Fuwalos during our combo, we can just pray that the next draw we give them will be a Phantom of Yubel and then sit on our hand traps and stall for another turn, maybe with Spirit in hand, stuff like that. That doesn't mean that Yubel is the only one suffering from that problem. There were multiple decks after Yubel that were meta that are badly hurt by Fuwalos, even currently right now. So what we can do is compensate our non-engine to combat Fuwalos. What I mean by that is obviously Ash Blossom, Called By, and in our case even Drawn Lockbird, since we can easily draw ourselves and still put an nigh unbeatable end board to the board. If you really want to, you can also play an additional out to Fuwalos, which I'm not sure. I have it in my deck list, I put it out, I'm like on and off on that. Crossout Designator is also an out against Fuwalos, which means if we play Crossout, we have 3, 6, 7, 8 outs against Fuwalos, and even if you do not play Crossout, you still have a lot of outs against Fuwalos, so it's not a lost cause. But what can Yubel in engine actually do against Fuwalos? A lot of people do not know that, but we quite frankly have a goodish line against Fuwalos. If we start by normal summoning Lotus effect, and your opponent on the effect declaration uses Fuwalos to then get a draw if you summon Spirit of Yubel, you can use Spirit of Yubel's effect to set Eternal Favorite, and now you contact fuse Lotus and Spirit of Yubel into Phantom of Yubel, which means now you have Eternal Favorite, which is a board wipe super polymerization for all of the monsters on the field if you want to, and a monster negate, which can stop a lot of decks on their tracks. The problem with that is that even though it's a goodish line, you still have to give your opponent 2 draws, which is suboptimal, and it's only good if you open specifically Lotus. If you open Engraver, Dark Beckoning Beast, suddenly the brickier card you play and the extra deck slot in Eternal Defender aren't really looking all that spicy in your deck anymore. So while yes, we can do that, and maybe I will experiment a lot more with Eternal Favorite, since I really do love that card, it's most of the times not worth it. Bottom line of the video, is Yubel a lot weaker than it was roughly a year ago? Hell yes it is. It is unplayable? No it is not. Is it a death sentence if your opponent has Fuwalos in their hand? No it is not. In my opinion, we just have to compensate with our non-engine for that. And then you see a surprisingly amount of times Fuwalos is like whatever, Ash Blossom or Drawl or Called By. Or maybe in most games the opponent doesn't even open Fuwalos. It is completely fine. And Yubel is still a strong deck. I love Yubel and I'm happy to make a lot more content for Yubel in the future. Even post Justice Hunters, how you combo now, how you play into or against Draco Tail, stuff like that. So If you do not want to miss that, do not forget to subscribe. In the meantime, we all still do love the best doggy Shavara. See ya.